Okay, so another book that I got to read over the break was Murder on the Ballarat Train, and this is another murder mystery series that I've been into, and this one is also the third book in a series. This is the Miss Fisher mystery series by Carrie Greenwood, and a couple things I love about this series. They're very short books, so this one was about 150 pages, so you get just enough of a little mystery set in the 1920s in Australia, and I love books that are set in Australia. I so want to visit there someday, and just getting to read about Australia during the 1920s is very fascinating. This mystery takes place on a train. There is an elderly woman who looks like she's been pulled out of the train and thrown off during one of the trips, and Miss Fisher, of course, is on the train, and she is not any kind of investigator really, except that she's just kind of good at solving mysteries. She doesn't have any connections to the police department necessarily, but she somehow finds herself in all these places where murders happen, and she's just a very clever woman. So this one was a very interesting mystery. I didn't really expect some of the turns that it took. One thing I do like about this is that there is a Netflix series based off of this book series, and I love the Netflix series. You need to check it out if you haven't. This doesn't go necessarily with that series, so even if you've watched the whole series, you can still read the books and have some new things that you really don't see in the television series. And there's several of these, so I'm only on the third one. But like I said, a very interesting read. You've got an empowered woman in the 1920s Australia solving her own mysteries. So the next book that I'm going to talk about is How Democracies Die. And what I like to do when I really get into reading stuff, I like to have a nonfiction book going and a fiction book. So those were some of the fiction books I've talked about, and I have this that I started as well. This one is very interesting, very timely in today's political climate, but basically this takes a look at past democracies who have had started out as a democracy but kind of turned to an authoritarian kind of dictatorship, and how those seemingly looking democracies kind of turned in that direction. What happened politically that made those places fall to those things. So it talks about places in Turkey and South America, obviously Hitler in Germany. It brings up just a lot of really good historical, political points and things that I really wasn't familiar with, especially with Chavez. So it takes kind of those ideas and then talks a little bit about today's political climate, and, you know, are we in the direction of dying out as being a democracy. So it's written by two Harvard professors, and just very enlightening. I thought it was a good read. I rated it 4 stars. I learned a lot, and it's not super long. It's only about 230 pages, so short, interesting read if you want a nonfiction book that's kind of really spot on as far as timeliness goes. So that's How Democracies Die. Alright, the next book that I want to talk about is The Traitors Game. This is a young adult fiction. It's set in kind of just a fantasy world, almost a little bit futuristic, some of the technology kind of seem, but I think it's set more like, you know, you have kings and you have lords and you have kingdoms, but there's a magical element to it. And the main character is sent away by her father. He works for the king, and she's sent away kind of after she had a kidnapping attempt against her, and she is sent to come back after a couple of years. And so on her way back from being kind of in an exile almost, where she's been training how to fight and use weapons and things like that to protect herself, she is kidnapped again. And her kidnappers want to use her to find the mysterious Odin blade that some people think exists and some people don't. But this group of renegades think it does exist because they think it will help them kill the evil king, and they want her help in finding it because it's in the dungeons of the castle that she lives in. I thought this was a really good read. It's a really quick read. It's not the best fantasy I've read lately, but I would say it's worth reading. I definitely want to read the second book to see what happens. The only thing that kind of maybe doesn't want me to give it a full 4-star rating, I'm thinking 3.5, is because I felt that there's a little bit of a romance story going on, and I almost felt that it was kind of the boy fell in love with her too soon and too quickly, like it was insta romance instead of kind of a slow build up, which I like a little bit more. But overall, great read. It's called The Traitors Game. I wanted to talk about one that I just started. This is another nonfiction one, so this is the nonfiction one I'm going to have going as I read some of my other fiction books. This is called Liberty, The Lives and Times of 6 Women in Revolutionary France. I have been super excited to read this book since I heard about it. I love stuff or books, movies, TV shows, whatever, set in France during this time period. And this is about real women who had a part in the French Revolution. I'm pretty much still in the introduction, and it's kind of given a little overview of all the 6 women it's going to talk about. They all seem very different and come from different stations. And I'm really excited to get to see how they played a role in the French Revolution. It's a long one though, so I will say this one's probably going to take me a little bit of time to read, but I do think I'm going to enjoy this one a lot. Alright, the next book that I'm planning on reading is called The Hollowed Ones, and this one is a young adult, I think it's paranormal probably from the description. I've actually had this on my to-read list for a while, and I finally got it. But the main character is Amish, and she is about to go on Rumspringa, and on her way to kind of get ready for it and prepare to kind of go out on her own for a little bit, I think kind of crazy things start happening in the world around them. There's strange like helicopter crashes and kind of virus things that are happening, and disappearances that they've all kind of been sheltered from for a while, obviously in their village, but it kind of starts kind of creeping up into where they live, and the main character finds a boy who is injured in their barn and takes him in and goes against the elders, and so there's kind of that storyline playing out. I'm not sure if it's vampires or zombies, but there's some kind of crazy thing that people are turning into, but I'm super interested in reading this. I don't think I've read anything that I can recall set in an Amish setting, so I thought that was kind of an interesting take, and I'm hoping that this one would be a good one that I can bring back and talk to my students about and give them a recommendation of something that they could read, because I really see them liking kind of the premise of this book. Alright, well that's all for now. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. If there's any suggestions or recommendations of books that you have and you want to leave them in the comments down below, that would be great. Bye guys!